Yankees Files podcast. We are back for the final edition of Yankees Files this regular season. I'm Will Harris, you're Alec Whipple, and the rest of you are fans of the team with the highest WRC plus in baseball, with the most position player Fangraphs WAR in the American League, with the highest World Series odds in the American League per PECOTA, and the highest World Series odds in baseball per Fangraphs. That team, of course, Whipple, is the New York Yankees, the team that can clinch the American League East with just one win against Baltimore this week. There's a ton to get into on this podcast, including a bunch of great questions sent in by our listeners and followers. But first, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I feel like we survived the West Coast trip and nothing too extraordinarily weird happened, and that's something to celebrate.
I mean, some weird stuff happened, but thankfully this time it was weird stuff that benefited the Yankees. I mean, when was the last time we saw the Yankees have just mind-boggling base running woes in Seattle go in their favor? Like, right. I don't know if it's ever happened.
I mean, and multiple extra inning wins in the same trip on the road, it to be a West Coast trip, no less. It was
insane,
pretty incredible. And you can't complain with any kind of road trip where, the wins start with, I would say, even a 4 or 5 out of 6 or 7. And I think the Yankees did what they needed to do. And all year we said it was going to come down to this 3-game series. And it was about a week away from happening. And then the wheat separated from the chaff, which was fun in a different way. And here we are at the last week of the regular season. And, I don't think we expected it to be this kind of margin even 7 days ago, but it's hard to be that upset when you look at the standings and you see a 6-game gap between first and second place, and the Yankees are on the right side of that equation.
So I'd love to start there, Whipple. I think we both had high expectations for this Yankees team coming into the year. I think we expected a significant bounce back with a healthy Aaron Judge. I think we expected that the addition of Juan Soto would make a big difference. And certainly those things have mattered a lot. I don't think, we've known that this Orioles series, that depending on when this gets released and when you're listening, is either starting tomorrow or tonight. I think we always thought that the season would pretty much come down, or the division would pretty much come down to this series. And in a way it has. The Yankees have not clinched the division. And if they lose out and the Orioles win out, or even, it's a 6-game lead. Yeah. So even if they lose out and the Orioles win out, or unless the Yankees lose out and the Orioles win out,
that cannot happen.
Then this series really will not decide the division. So I guess really in no way can this series decide the division, because it depends on more that will happen outside of it. I'm shocked. Like, I think you were less bullish than I was on the Orioles coming into the season, but even still, you thought they were a good team. Maybe in your wildest dreams, you saw this series being pretty inconsequential, but in your just reasonably optimistic dreams, did you? I'm very surprised and grateful that this series is not do or die for the Yankees. Not that I wouldn't have had confidence in them if it were, but that they built themselves this lead against or over a team as good as Baltimore to make it so this series pretty much doesn't matter. That is an achievement in itself, and I'm very happy about it, but I did not see it coming.
In such a short amount of time, too. I mean, a week ago, what was the margin? It was 2 games maybe, or a game and a half, 3 games at most. It was something where it would have mattered, very much so, how this series would play out. And for, I don't know.
I mean, it was
of the season. We thought this was going to be the case.
The lead was half a game on September 10th. It was 2 games on September 14th. It was 3 games as recently as September 15th and 4 games as recently as September 20th.
Right. So it's then you're talking about something that actually could matter, especially given the tiebreaker scenario. I mean, I was just prepared for that one game in Baltimore at the end of the pre-All-Star break schedule to loom very large in potential tiebreaker calculations. And the fact that it doesn't, I think it both speaks to how well the Yankees have played in the last 2 weeks, and just, I think really putting the spotlight on how poorly the Orioles have played. And yeah, there was a time where the Yankees and the Orioles were playing poorly, but only one of the teams pulled out of it. I mean, the Orioles just are skidding hard. And, I know the Tigers are hot, and I know, they're playing good competition, but it's not what you expect from a team. Even if you're less, if you're more bearish, or yeah, if you're more bearish on them, I just think you wouldn't expect this. Like, I expected probably, a good team that the Yankees I thought could be better than. I didn't expect a sub 500 for a good portion of the season, everything kind of collapsing at once. It's tough to, if you're an Orioles fan, I think this is got to be tough to watch. But if you're a Yankees fan, I'm happy that who wants the AL East more actually was decided definitively versus both teams racing to the bottom.
It's interesting. In a lot of ways, the Orioles are the team that Yankees fans think the Yankees have been this year. Since July 26th, the Orioles are 25-29. The Yankees are 32-20. This is we spoke on last week's podcast about the narrative that the Yankees have been so bad for so long, or at least middling for so long. Well, over the last almost 2 months, the Orioles are 4 games under 500. The Yankees are 12 games over. And it's funny. Apple of Nestor on Twitter has frequently pointed out that Yankees fans will insist that the Yankees are this fatally flawed team, that there's so much wrong with them, that they are doomed when it comes to the playoffs. And they'll point to these other teams, namely Baltimore, but they do the same thing with a team like Kansas City, who's 25-27 in that same span, or 25-28 in that same span, 26-27 rather. And they go, those are the really good teams. Or they point to Cleveland, who's 29-26, or, whoever it might be. And it just feels very silly to me. So I do wonder if, with the benefit of, or even just with the clarity of these last few months, how Yankees fans who have that narrative might think about Baltimore. I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. I know they've had key injuries, and they are getting guys back. Like Jordan Westberg is back now. Ramon Arias, who was gone for a briefer period, is back. The pitching is certainly a concern for them, but I don't know. I think the Orioles are a good team that's capable of winning the World Series, and that it has been this way for as long as it has is quite surprising to me.
I mean, I don't think it's, I don't think it's going to take a stretch to see these teams matching up again very quickly. And
no.
Whatever has happened in the second half, the Orioles are still fundamentally a good team, and the toughest first round opponent the Yankees could likely get. So, it will be fun to celebrate this week. I think definitely a lot of victory laps to be taken, but I think a little bit of caution. Just bad things can happen when I think teams, play each other enough very quickly. It's neat. I don't think I think the Yankees are obviously favorites in that series if that happens, but I am worried about the prospect of a Yankees-Orioles ALDS. I will say that, despite us kind of talking smack about the Orioles.
No, definitely. The Orioles are a good team, and any team that's in the playoffs is good enough to beat the Yankees in 3 out of 5 games. Any team that's in the playoffs is good enough to beat the Yankees in 4 out of 7 games. On the other hand, the Yankees are good enough to beat any playoff team in 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 7 games. And that's why the playoffs produce pretty random results, but that's also why I would like to face the worst possible teams in the playoffs. So
which is which is why they should reseed after the first wild card round.
Yes, so that's actually a great point, and it leads us into one of the follower listener questions we got, which is from the Warmonger at the Warmonger_ on Twitter. He asked, if you could choose the whole path to a World Series championship, who would you choose to face at each level? And I told him I'd like to face the White Sox, then the White Sox, then the Marlins. But he said that wasn't allowed. So he said, consider the bracket. So as it stands now, the Yankees would be the 1 seed, Cleveland 2, Houston 3, Baltimore 4, Kansas City 5, Detroit 6. Which means that I always get confused with how this works. The Astros would play the Tigers.
Yes.
For the chance to play Cleveland.
Yes.
And the Orioles would play the Royals.
Wait, are the Royals 5 or 6?
The Royals are showing as ahead of the Tigers. They must have the tiebreaker.
Okay. Then yeah.
At least that's what ESPN is showing right now. So the Yankees would get the winner of Royals Orioles.
Yankees-Royals playoff series would be quite a throwback.
It would be a throwback. And I would rather see the Royals than the Orioles pretty emphatically. Just given what we know about what wins in the playoffs, which is out-homering your opponent, sure, the Royals are going to allow fewer home runs than the Orioles, maybe, probably, but the Royals have hit 167 home runs this year, and Baltimore has hit 225. It's harder to out-homer your opponent when you don't hit many home runs, so I would certainly rather face the Royals. I would rather face the Royals than the Orioles in that matchup.
Also, I just don't want to face Corbin Burns twice in a 5-game series. Even if he's worse than before, it's still Corbin Burns. And, same thing for the Tigers. I feel like the Royals don't have the Burns or Skubal level pitcher. And if, aside from homering, that could be one of the single biggest factors.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then of the remaining teams, so in theory, the ALCS opponent could be Detroit, Houston, or Cleveland. Who would you most like to face?
I mean, still Detroit. I would say Detroit.
Yeah, I think it has to be Detroit, even with the Skubal factor.
Right.
It's, do you want to face the team with the plus 37 run differential, plus 83 run differential, or plus 98 run differential? And I know which one I'd choose.
In that case, I mean, Skubal in a 5-game series versus 7-game series is a little bit different too. And
yep. Unless you think he can pitch thrice, which
right, I don't know. I mean, I don't even think they were envisioning him pitching in the playoffs at all. So it will. That's
a great point.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna push him, or maybe they will. I don't know. I mean, either way, I just think the Tigers are at the low end for me. The interesting question is it Guardians or Astros immediately above them?
I would rather face the Guardians before Houston, I think.
Yeah.
And it's not like everyone's going to be like, oh, Houston, Mojo, all that stuff. No, it's just I'd rather face the team that I think is worse at outscoring its opponent, and that team is Houston, or that team is Cleveland. I want it to be on the record that I think the Yankees match up fine with the Astros. And that's another question we got. Rob Sasso, by the way, asked a similar question. Rank the opponents that you think are best matchups for the Yankees in the ALDS. Shout out, Rob. Thank you for that question. Someone else asked about how the Yankees match up with Houston, and I can't find it right now, so I apologize to whoever asked the question that I am unable to find it. But look, people are like, oh, Houston's so different than they were at the beginning of the season. Are they? It would still be Framber, Ronel Blanco, Hunter Brown. These are all guys the Yankees have seen and played well against.
you say Kikuchi, the Yankees killer,
Oh yeah, people are gonna say that. You know what? Kikuchi's been good against the Yankees. Let's, that's just in the last 2 years. It's just true. Okay,
I
let
mean,
him.
the
Whatever.
Astros had Verlander, Cole, and Greinke. Like, I
Yeah,
feel a lot better about whoever they're trotting out right now. And that Yankees
very
team
much
played
agree.
them competitively.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I agree with you. Whatever it is, like the Yankees are, I think, clearly are better record wise, and I think ability wise, but the Guardians, I don't know. I would rather face them. I'm not worried about facing the Astros, but yeah, I agree with you. I'd rather face the Guardians. And I guess what would you feel on the NL side? How would you quickly rank?
So right now, the NL wildcard teams are the Padres, Mets, and Diamondbacks, and the division leaders are the Dodgers, Phillies, and Brewers. I would want to face the Brewers because it would guarantee that I'm happy no matter who wins the World Series. But I think the best matchup or the most favorable matchup would be, oh, well, I guess it wouldn't be the Mets because Gerrit Cole's bad against the Mets. The Mets have, the worst run differential of any team the Yankees could face, any team that's currently in the playoffs. I don't want to face the Dodgers lineup. I don't want to face the Phillies pitching. So maybe I would say Milwaukee, but like, so the rationale for saying Milwaukee is, hey, they kind of dismantled their pitching staff. They don't have Corbin Burns anymore, but then here they are with this phenomenal run differential. I don't know. Maybe I really don't know. All those teams are good. Maybe San Diego, honestly.
I don't know. You're Dylan Cease and Michael King. Like
Yeah.
they have. I would say Arizona. I honestly would put the Dodgers higher of the teams I'd want to face because their pitching is just
Their
non-existent.
pitch, yeah, they don't have pitchers, but they don't
I
need to
know.
have pitchers, maybe. Like,
But like all these teams have good lineups. For me, the team I don't want to face is the actually it's probably Padres and Phillies. Phillies probably number one. I'm worried about the Padres, man.
is it the pitching that scares you with the Padres?
The pitching and the fact, I mean, the offense was good. I just didn't realize how good the pitching was going to be. I feel like the thing with them is they're always the starter short. And I mean, shout out to Michael King.
Yeah, I guess
Dylan
they are
Cease doing his
fifth in
thing.
WRC plus.
Yeah, I don't know. Too many guys who scare me. The Michael King game in the World Series.
Oh my gosh.
Michael King versus Juan Soto in the World Series might be like the biggest win-win trade of all time, though.
It
And I
really
feel like
would.
it would be a moment to celebrate no matter what happens. So that'd be kind of cool.
So it was Anash at Anash_maps24 who asked how the Yankees match up with Houston. Interesting question that we got from S Castro at S Castro 87. Do you think there's a round they could get knocked out in that would endanger either Boone or Cashman's job? No.
I mean, if you got swept in the ALCS or ALDS, there'd probably be some question.
You got swept in the ALDS.
I don't think Cashman's job is in danger.
No, I don't think Cashman's job is in danger either.
But it's just a question of, are they at that point with Boone? I
doubt it.
I think so.
Yeah, I'd be surprised, and I think if you fire the manager based on his playoff performance, you're buying into the idea that the manager is important. But then you're also ignoring the guy having a 10 plus improvement in wins year over year, which if the manager is important, he should get some credit for. So yeah,
but
it doesn't work for me.
Eventually somebody's got to be accountable. Like, I don't know. I mean,
for
me,
what?
like, I guess my thing is like, maybe it's less accountability and more like, I believe there's like an expiration date with managers. Like, I think after a while, you probably should just change it. Like, that's why I never bought that they should keep Girardi. Like 10 years is a long time.
This plays into a question that Ali, the inimitable Ali Bear 29 on Twitter asked, how much difference does a manager make? And if it's not much, how do we explain teams that do better under a new manager?
I mean, I think variation, right? Like what? I don't buy into
the fact
that
continue the point that you were making about expiration dates.
I mean, I just think like Irregardless of the one loss record, like
What of the one
sometimes,
loss? What?
regardless of the one loss record, Jesus. Sometimes I think there's got to be a new voice in the room, and Joe Girardi was 10 years into his managing career, and I think it was time for him to go. Like, I just think after a while, it will be time for Aaron Boone to go. Do I think Brandon Hyde should be fired because the Orioles are gonna win 15 less games? Like, probably not. But I think if that, after 10 years, like maybe Brandon Hyde needs to move on. Like, I just think it can't be unlimited time these managers get, less for win-loss reasons and more for just like you just need like different people around. I
Why
don't
though?
know.
What do you need? If it's not about the wins and losses, why does it matter?
Because I think like people, I don't know, like Girardi clearly was like the game had passed him by a little bit. At least I felt
But
that way.
doesn't
Which
that translate to wins and losses? Like the at my baseball page one famously points out that like the Yankees had a plus 198 run differential in 2017, and they're the only team since 2017 to have a plus 198 run differential and win fewer than 95 games. So that spoke to like Girardi being handed something good and managing it to less than the sum of its parts by a significant amount.
yeah. I
So
mean,
what like is there a sign like cuz it's not just that he was there 10 years, right? It's that there were things that he wasn't doing or opportunities that he wasn't taking advantage of or things that he wasn't maximizing to the extent that it's his responsibility. I don't know that that just comes with time. Suppose you have a manager who is very adaptable and continually delivers what the front office wants. Like then why does it matter? If it's 2031 and Aaron Boone is still on the same page as the front office and consistently not losing the Yankees a bunch of games, why does it matter?
I think eventually just having like, I don't know, maybe it's just a stylistic thing. Like I personally just think like different styles of managers should, work well with different types of teams. And clearly, like Girardi is a veteran manager and they had a young team and it was good to bring Boone in. And maybe there'll be a situation where that changes. Like they need someone who, just communicates with a different style. I don't think it has a big effect on wins and losses. I just think like eventually, like there is a little bit of complacency that goes on.
So to Ali's question, I think if you looked at it, probably as many teams that get a new manager do better as do worse.
There's no way to ensure your team is going to do well except for get good players. Like
Yeah,
that's very clear.
exactly. And I would think that managers can certainly hurt a team. As I would argue that Dusty Baker, even though the Astros won the World Series, like
Oh
frequently
yeah.
did, he, would bat Yordan Alvarez behind terrible players just because he really thought he should hit fourth. The Astros would have been better if Yordan Alvarez hit second. And, that's what he's doing this year.
Yeah.
And the Astros are going to win their division, which they didn't last year. So, uh, managers, yeah, I would say can certainly have a negative effect. I don't think there are managers who have overwhelmingly positive effects, really, not more than a win or two. And I think that's reflected in their salaries. I don't buy that player performance is all that linked to the manager. I do buy that a manager can be affirmatively good at managing a bullpen and that you can see that in player performance. But the people who say, oh, Gary Sanchez was never as good under Boone as he was in 2017, like that shows Girardi is a better manager. Like, what are we? That's ridiculous. Come
Yeah.
on. Aaron Judge was never as good under Girardi as he's been under Boone. Like,
Right.
what do you want?
We could have you could have said the reverse until 2022, and then it just flips on a dime. Look at Craig Counsell. I feel like that's the biggest example of like the
Yeah,
guy got
he leaves
paid.
the Brewers, gets
Yeah,
paid a ton of money. The Brewers possibly get worse on paper, and now they're as good as they've been in a long time.
yeah. I think it's more random, and
Yeah.
I think it's around the margins, but Well, I mean, going back to the original question, are the Yankees at that point? Like, I think people want them to be a lot more than they actually are. And especially if you're committing to Judge and committing to Soto, if you're going to commit to Soto, I don't think you want to do that under the guise of organizational instability, which is kind of why my original dislike for Aaron Boone went away, because in 2022, I kind of realized that, like, to get Judge, they kind of needed to commit to Boone. And that probably is more important than anything Aaron Boone himself did, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that if good players value you having a certain guy as your manager, and that is what allows you to get good players, then that is definitely more important than the actual actions that the Yankees or that the manager takes. I would also caution anyone from saying that this Yankees team should have been a lot better. Pacoda at the start of the year projected them to go 92-70, and it now projects them to go about 96-66. So through that lens, they've overachieved.
I mean, there's just a certain point where it's like, you're good. Like, you don't, the difference between 96 and 98 wins doesn't tell me like anything extra about a
No,
team, you know?
definitely not.
And especially in the current climate of every team kind of being at the same level.
Yeah.
I really hope the Yankees could push and just get the best record in baseball and really put all the concerns about seeding and everything to bed, but also kind of definitively answer the question of like who had the best regular season.
Definitely.
Not like they could have been better.
Yeah, definitely. So entering play today, the Yankees have a 2.5 game lead over Cleveland. Cleveland's not playing today either.
Which is functionally a 3.5 because they have the tiebreaker. Just got to do it, right?
Yes, the Yankees do have the tiebreaker. So as long as, what is it? The magic number is at 3. So
3.
Any combination of 3 wins by the Yankees and 3 losses by Cleveland would clinch the Yankees the best, or it would clinch the Yankees the number 1 seed because they have the tiebreaker, which is great. From Waleed Harani at Waleed_Harani, does Jason make the postseason roster? I think affirmatively yes now, although it was looking bad for a while, and I'm not sure you can let him hit right-handed in the postseason.
Yeah, I guess like if there's 6 games this week, how many times is he going to start? How many times Verdugo going to start?
I think it depends on if and when they clinch the things that they can clinch, because I do think they'll want to get guys off their feet. But I think if recent games are any indication, the Yankees are really preparing Dominguez to be a starting outfielder on this team in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're going to have a lot of days to do that. I guess just
kind of
realizing.
I hope so.
Fingers crossed.
Favorite storyline of the season?
I mean, it has to be Judge and Soto, right? Like,
yeah.
I guess do another
second favorite storyline. Do you want to go first? Do you have one?
I would say I was entertained a lot by watching Luis Gil. I feel like watching a guy who didn't really pitch for the better part of 2 years come and do this. I mean, there's clearly 2 rookies of the year, and I think those are compelling. But for me, Luis Gil, like what he did, given what he thought he was going to do, and I think like we've talked about this before, the timing of the Gerrit Cole injury and kind of how that started his rise. I mean, I just think the world could look different. I mean, maybe not the world, like Luis Gil's world and the Yankees world could look different if Cole didn't get injured. I mean, who knows if he even pitches at all, in the majors? Who knows if he's just in the bullpen? So really, like, I think that's one of the cooler parts of baseball. The like, one thing leads to another and an opportunity is taken. And the Yankees haven't had a whole lot of that in the last few years. Like, they've had the good guys playing really well. Some guys have played poorly, but the like out of nowhere superstar, like I think that's really cool.
Yeah, not since like Luke Voit probably have we really seen that. I guess aside from bullpen guys. Yeah, I think the Gil story has been phenomenal. I think Austin Wells, the catcher that the Yankees drafted and developed, who nobody thought would stick at the position in the majors, who not only becomes an elite defensive catcher far beyond the dreams of any evaluator or fan, but also becomes a reliable cleanup hitter. Like the Austin Wells story has been phenomenal. And then one thing that I've had fun following that hasn't been maybe my favorite storyline on the level of those has just been Carlos Rodon's journey of self-discovery
I was going to
and
say that too.
the way that he has recaptured some of the form of the guy who the Yankees went out and signed. And that's a story that I hope culminates with a terrific playoff performance.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Carlos Rodon, kind of watching every start through pins and needles at various points of the year,
Yeah.
and like really these last few weeks, kind of seeing the final form, as you said. I mean, one more, like, I guess this is kind of like the, I wouldn't say like out of nowhere players, but like definitely the surprises, because that's always more fun to watch. The rise of Luke Weaver has been quite something.
Sure. Absolutely.
Biggest story out of the bullpen. I mean, the Yankees have their yearly reliever rise, but like, I don't know. Weaver just seems like the unlikeliest candidate of them all.
Yeah, I'm with you. Related from Volpe Enthusiast at Volpe Enthusiast, do you think Clay Holmes could be effective in the postseason if he were to go four-seamer slider to lefties and sinker slider to righties? The man throws 97 and a four-seamer shouldn't be hard to locate even this late in the season. Like that might work based on the shape and speed of those pitches and, you know, how they profile and how they're designed. I think the problem with Clay recently has been that even pitches thrown with good stuff have been horribly located. And then on top of it, it's been compounded by pitches thrown poorly and located poorly. But, you know, unless he has command, which he hasn't in a little while, I don't think it's a pitch mix question. I think that question is secondary until he can find the strike zone.
Yeah. I still think he's going to have an important role in the postseason.
I think so too.
He's too good not to. But yeah, it's tough. I hope he does, but it definitely has gotten tougher because he's like actually pitching badly now.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's such a bad time for him to pitch badly because for so much of the year he was pitching well and had less to show for it than he deserved. And that just made people who doubted him the whole time feel like they had so much ammo and feel like they were vindicated when he actually started pitching poorly, when really that's not the arc of his season at all. Anyway, from S. Castro again, imagine the Yankees win the World Series. Who are two non-obvious players that were heroes? For example, no Soto, Judge, or Cole. Give me a pitcher and a hitter.
I mean, pitcher, I'm going to go back to Carlos Rodon. I feel like he's kind of, if he is what we think he could be, he is fulfilling your prediction of being the AJ Burnett. And I don't know if I took that as seriously as like I am now taking it, or have after, you know, kind of mulling on it all season. But like Gerrit Cole is going to be the ace, and, you know, thank God he's there for that, but they're going to need another guy to step up, and there's less question marks and I think a higher ceiling for Rodon. Especially when I think anyone you start in game 3 has the potential to be really good or really bad. I hope Rodon can be that guy. As for hitting, I mean, I feel like what the popular thing is to say Volpe's going to like have a BABIP run. And I don't know.
Yeah, I think the popular ones are Volpe and Dominguez.
Yeah.
We got another question from Anash. Do you think Jason can have an Evan Carter type postseason run?
Yeah.
I know who my hitter is, and it's not either of those guys.
I'm going to say Trent Grisham and his one at bat. I'm going to say that I don't know. Like there's so many good candidates. I think because they have a very strong bench. Like let's not undersell how strong their bench is. And instead of picking a starter, I'll say Oswaldo Cabrera gets some time and has a few big hits. I know that's like maybe he's not starting, but all the starters are kind of, I feel like, obvious. That seems like a non-obvious hype guy. I mean, he's already done it in the postseason, right? Like
he has
in 2022.
He has.
I know who your hitter's gonna be.
I got Tom Canley, as my pitcher. It just feels like he's going to come in and Houdini something in a big spot. And then I've been saying for a while now, the hitter who feels obvious to me, and maybe that violates the terms of the question, but he's not on the level of these guys just from as a player, is Jazz. Like, it just doesn't it just feel like he's gonna do something cool? Like, it's 100%, like, I'm very out of my element doing this vibes thing, but it would not surprise me if we looked up and there was Jazz Chisholm, ripping a double into the gap or popping one into the short porch in a big moment.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I thought you say Glaber. Is that too obvious, or just?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Glaber just had a really good postseason. I don't think he is too obvious. Yeah, I think Glaber would qualify. But I felt like it was too obvious a choice by me if I picked him.
Yeah. I think Trent, bold prediction, I think Trent Grisham will get one important playoff at bat at some point.
And it'll be awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. You never know.
Yeah, I think Trent having a really good, really important, like, one or two plate appearances would not be surprising at all.
I mean, do you think Verdugo will get playing time in the postseason against tough righties?
I think Verdugo will get playing time in the postseason. I don't know if it'll be that it comes against tough righties or if it'll just be that that he comes in to play defense, because I don't think the Yankees trust, and I don't know that the Yankees should trust Dominguez's defense.
Yeah.
In critical situations.
So I just feel like Verdugo has annoyingly kind of, he could be like the guy who all of a sudden like decides to get hot for a few postseason games.
I'm less convinced there. From Spreadsheet Enjoyer at Wells Enjoyer with 2 R's. If you were managing the Yankees, would you rather get one less out when your team is hitting or have to get an extra out when your team is pitching?
I think I would rather get one less out when hitting.
I agree.
Because that's a lot of straight pitchers are, it's just a lot more fragile. And like
getting 27 outs is hard enough. Getting 36 outs would be like impossible.
And the Yankees, it's not like they need all 3 outs to score runs.
Exactly.
Like, you need to get all 3 outs to get out of the inning. So
exactly. Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. It's like a hard question, but I also think that was a clear answer.
Yeah.
So, Whipple, the last question that we got, which came from a few different people, was what's happening to Gleyber Torres? And I don't know. I think it will be a hot topic for us this offseason, hopefully, as he's wearing a World Series ring. I think the Yankees should probably make him the qualifying offer. I don't see why they wouldn't. But it's just like, I don't know, man. He's going to get a multi-year deal somewhere, I'm almost certain. So are the Yankees willing to match that? Are the Yankees interested in matching that? It's very hard to say. I think chances are the qualifying offer is the best chance they give him to come back, and he ends up on another team.
Yeah, it's a lot of money to commit, though. Like, you have to clear out what, $30 million for Soto.
Okay, no. So I'm not meaning to take this out on you, but people keep talking about how they need to put a bunch of money aside for Juan Soto. Juan Soto is making $31 million this year. So they don't need that. Imagine that's already committed. Like, the change in payroll for Juan Soto is going to be what, $15 million?
Yeah. And how much is Gleyber Torres making this year?
Gleyber is making $15 million. But if you decline Anthony Rizzo's option and you don't bring back Alex Verdugo, you've now freed up $25 million.
Right.
So, like,
and then you need a first baseman. I mean, if you want to go with Ben Rice, fine. But I think they need a first baseman.
Sure. No, they might. But unless that first baseman is like Pete Alonso, there's a lot of money coming off the books.
Yes, but
And
I think
increasing Juan Soto's pay by $15 million and increasing Gleyber's pay by $5 million, which is what the qualifying offer would do, you could still you still have a lot coming off the books. And unless the mandate is we absolutely must spend less tomorrow than we're spending today, I don't think that having to pay Soto ruins Gleyber's chances of be ending up on the Yankees, and they'd be stupid not to offer him the qualifying offer, because if he accepts it, then they have Gleyber Torres. And if he doesn't accept it and they have a worse second baseman, then at least they got something for it.
Yeah. Okay. They probably will accept or extend the qualifying offer. I think anything past that, then you're talking about longer term commitments. But
yeah, and I don't think they'll make him a longer term offer.
Fair. Okay, that's fair enough.
Whipple, one place I want to go, because we've gotten I think in recent podcasts, there have been a lot of like big picture topics that we've gotten caught up in, whether it's managers, whether it's the playoffs, whether it's projections, whether it's where guys are going to end up and who's going to be on the Yankees next year. There are a couple guys that I want to highlight just for their recent performances. Not all of them positive, but if we just look at the Yankees hitters in September, which is the month in which we currently find ourselves, one thing in particular sticks out, or actually 3 things in particular stick out to me. The first is how terrific Gleyber Torres has been. And we've seen a lot of questions about, hey, are you buying the BABIP from Gleyber? And no, I'm not. And I do have concerns. He has a 368 WOBA this month, a 342 xWOBA. His BABIP is 371. There's no reason that Gleyber Torres should have a 371 BABIP, even though he hits line drives, even though he goes the other way. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I do expect that to come back to earth. I was happy that he hit a ball out to center field in the last game against the A's. The second thing that sticks out to me is Jazz. Jazz came onto the scene so hot with the Yankees, and he really hasn't done a ton of damage with the bat lately. He has a 79 WRC plus this month. The last one is Austin Wells. Austin Wells has a 27 WRC plus in September. And naturally, because Austin Wells has the worst batted ball luck in baseball, I think his BABIP in that time starts with a 1 or is in the low 2s. Yeah, it's 184, which is ridiculous and stupid, and I hate it. And his xWOBA in that time has been 239, which is actually the really concerning part. It's like, hey, Austin Wells, you used to do this cool thing where you always hit the ball in the air really hard, and now you're not, and this seems like a bad time to stop doing that. The Yankees offense has been composed in a weird way this month as compared to the rest of the season. Like, the top 5 hitters are Jason Dominguez, Oswaldo Cabrera, Gleyber Torres, and then Soto and Judge. I guess my question to you is, since it's worked, do you really care? But then how does it make you feel for what's coming down the road?
I mean, I feel fine about it. I think, it's at this point, like, I guess I didn't even fully realize like all those things because we're so far into the season, all this stuff isn't as readily apparent. And the, players are going to get hot at different times and slump at different times. I think as long as Soto and Judge are doing their thing, I'm happy to see that Dominguez is doing well. I think Austin Wells has shown enough where he'll figure it out. Like, I guess everything I feel like is on the margins, unless there's like some huge concern with Soto and Judge. And going into the playoffs, it all resets. Like even someone like, I don't know, Volpe, like, Volpe was struggling very badly and then had a good weekend. And, if he has a hot last week, like, am I going to feel significantly better about Anthony Volpe? Probably not. But like, does it really matter? No, because like the guy, I know what his role is. And I feel like that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, I envision, you can envision everyone's role and what they're capable of doing. I don't think these numbers change that all that much. yeah, I think if there was like some huge concern, someone gets injured. I mean, at this point, injury really is like the biggest thing to look out for.
Definitely.
That's kind of where I feel like my head is at. And more so, on the pitcher side too.
Yeah.
Just because I think the Yankees have a deeper lineup than they do a pitching staff.
Yeah, and I mean, elephant in the room there that we haven't discussed yet, Jake Cousins has gone on the IL. The
Yeah.
Yankees have said he may be able to come back for the playoffs, but not banking on that. Really disappointing because he was, he had become one of their higher leverage, more trusted relievers. And I don't know that Clayton Beeter can insert himself into that role. We also found out Lou Trevino isn't going to be back, which I think was reasonable, but is unfortunate. I don't think this really opens up anything for Scott Efros, like as much as there may be some people out there who were hoping for that. He's been pitching fine, but like I'm not really reading into AAA numbers, and the Yankees clearly don't trust him a lot, and seemed like there might have been some mechanical or health or velocity things that were going wrong at the major league level. So it's Clayton Beeter, and we've seen Clayton Beeter pitch exactly 1 inning at the major league level. Was it 3 pitches?
Yeah, it's his debut, 3 pitches.
And so I was watching the highlights from that game like randomly the other day, and 1 inning, 3 pitches is so ridiculous. And that's all he's done in the majors. Yeah. The Yordan Alvarez play, you want to talk about weird plays like the Julio Rodriguez play, the Victor Robles play, the Yordan Alvarez play in that first series in Houston when Beeter was pitching, what is he hits a ground ball to Volpe and Volpe throws it away.
Right. Yeah.
And then he like makes one move towards first base and they flip the ball to Rizzo or get the ball to Rizzo and Rizzo tags him out. And it's like, yeah, dude, you tried to go to second. Sorry. I don't know if I'd ever seen that. We have to talk about the Julio Rodriguez play though, because
and the Victor Robles
play. So the narrative that has surrounded the Yankees, Joel Sherman was on MLB Network talking about this. And, I think the Talking Yanks guys had a segment where they were talking about like the Yankees are talented, but they're not good at baseball. And it's like, what are you talking about, dude? The narrative is that the Yankees make all these mental errors and so many of them show up in making outs on the bases. It was really refreshing that like the series immediately following that, the Yankees opponent made 2 of the most boneheaded outs on the bases that I've ever seen. So first of all, we can start with Robles. Luis Gil is about to walk Justin Turner.
That was crazy.
And Robles like can't contain himself and tries to steal home with 2 outs and of course gets thrown out, which completely bails out Gil. Like, I don't know what comes over you in that situation. There were 3 balls, right?
Right. And like Justin Turner was pissed. I mean,
yeah, I would be too.
Like what I mean, in your mind, are you just like, no one's ever going to see this coming? Like, maybe
you
there's
have
a reason
to be,
for that.
You have to be just unbelievably confident that you're going to make it. And even then, you kind of needed to be more confident that you were going to make it.
Right. And what's the, it's like risk reward. I mean, there's no reward. I mean, the reward is probably something that would have happened anyway. It's like, you can't even analyze it because it was so dumb.
Yeah.
It was very apparent with plays like that how the Mariners blew a 10-game lead.
Oh, extremely. Just extremely. And like, I wish they hadn't, because I wish the Astros weren't going to make the playoffs, but that's beside the point.
I mean, anything, the other play with Julio, like, that was at least a tiny bit defensible. He had like a legitimate defense. I mean,
well, okay. So the Julio thing, you got to get out of the way of a bat that Randy Arozarena has just thrown in your direction. Absolutely. And I commend his athleticism, agility, and awareness for doing so. But he just jogs around in foul territory after getting out of the way. Like, it's as if he thought it was a dead ball. And frankly, I don't know what he did think, because when I watched it live, I didn't realize Wells had the ball. I thought it got by him for some reason. Obviously, Julio didn't think that because he wasn't running home, but like, it's not obvious to me what he saw or could tell. One thing that sticks out about that play to me is the first person who notices we can make an out at third base right now is Jazz. Like, before anyone else, Jazz is running to the bag and yelling to Austin Wells to throw him the ball. And that's just so impressive to me because, first of all, I don't think that that's like necessarily like in the back pocket of every third baseman, like that's something they know really well, but it's not a position he's played. He's never had to deal with like this foul territory stuff, really. But just they're, 18 baseball players, or 19, I guess, with a guy on base on the field, 20 because there was a guy on first too. And there are umpires and there are base coaches and there are dugouts right there. And nobody notices before Jazz. And frankly, like, he was out by a lot, but it was also a pretty close play. So for Jazz to have that level of awareness to be like, hey, Austin Wells, I need you to throw me this ball right now, was sick. But also, it wasn't raining. I don't know that it was like super humid. Arozarena was wearing batting gloves. How did he not hold on to the bat? Like, there's just so much that's so weird about that play.
Yeah, it was strange. And I think it was really good instinct by Jazz, who's taken a third base, I think, better than, I mean, that's something I was clearly wrong about. Like, I was just of the opinion he could not play third, and very happy to be wrong about that, because he's just done such a great job with all the athletic plays. I know there, not all the routine plays have been made, but I feel like to expect that with someone playing a new position. But that specific play, I think, was a great encapsulation of the Mariners season, and to show that the Yankees are, while they make base running errors, so does every other team. And people care about the team that they watch, because that's all they're watching.
When we were mired in that discourse, I pointed out that the 2009 Yankees were in the bottom third of the league in DRS. They made the fourth most outs on the bases, I believe it was, in baseball.
Slow people. That team was slow.
That team was really slow. Yeah, fourth or tied for third most outs on the bases in baseball, actually. And it's like, and the Angels, who everyone thought were like, the Yankees kryptonite, they made the most outs on the bases. People love to read into stuff that doesn't actually matter. Like, there is all these, I'm not obviously saying that base running or defense or the number of times that you ground into a double play, which the 2009 Yankees also did a ton. I'm not saying that those things don't matter. And I'm not saying that it's better to be bad at them. But I am saying that people assign a lot more value to them than they actually hold. And that if your team is really good at a lot of other stuff, like the 2009 Yankees were, like the 2024 Yankees are, you can overcome being bad at certain things. And there are, confounding variables in that. Like, when you put the most people on base, you have the most opportunities to make outs on the bases. When you put the most people on base, you have the most opportunities to ground into double plays. When you have big hulking power hitters, you may sacrifice defensive value because they're not very good defensively, because they don't move well. Like, there are trade-offs all over the place when you're building a roster, and people see things happen on a baseball field or not happen that they want to see, and they draw these conclusions about what it must mean for the team. And Joel Sherman said this isn't winning baseball, and the Talking Yanks guys said, like, they're talented, but they're not good at baseball, or whatever it was. And it's just so ridiculous to me, because the question that I always ask is, if that stuff matters as much as you say it does, why doesn't it show through in the record?
Yeah.
And no one can answer that.
Yeah. I mean, people say beating bad teams, but the Yankees have such a good record against not bad teams that
Exactly.
So I think you're right. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I think it's very silly. I just one quick game that we'll play before we wrap up here is we talked about the top 5 hitters on the Yankees in September, and I think I had a minimum of 10 plate appearances for that. Can you tell me who the top 5 hitters on the Yankees are all year? Now, for guys who switch teams, only plate appearances with the Yankees are counted here. Minimum 1 plate appearance. Who are the top 5 hitters by WRC plus on the Yankees?
Taylor Trammell, number 1.
Taylor Trammell is number 2.
Oh my God. I feel like I messed this up already.
I think he's getting, let's see. Oh, you know what? I was going to say, I think he's getting park adjusted. No, Taylor Trammell is being punished for having a walk and a hit.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Well, Judge and Soto are definitely up there.
Judge and Soto are 3 and 4. So you have 2, 3, and 4.
Carlos Navarez, number 1.
No, he played too much.
Oh, damn.
So number 1 has 1 plate appearance. Number 5 has 171.
It's number 5, Jahmai Jones. Or no, he didn't hit that well.
No, and he only had 47 plate appearances, but he did have a 96 WRC plus.
Is Jazz number 5?
Jazz is number 5. He has 135 WRC plus with the Yankees.
Number 1 is 1 plate appearance.
1 plate appearance. Do you want some hints?
Sure. Who's like 1?
Nolan Smith, John Shire, Kyle Singler.
So it's who played for
Mason Plumlee, Miles Plumlee.
I get the reference.
Marshall Plumlee.
Oh my God.
Lance Thomas, Rashid Suleiman, but not when he was at Maryland.
What did Duke Ellis? Oh, he got a hit.
Duke Ellis is 1 for 1 with a single.
And that was in that game they almost came back and won from.
Yep. He has an 881 WOBA and a 503 WRC plus as a Yankee this year.
Good job. Good job, Duke.
Good job, Duke Ellis. But bad job, Duke.
Do you know my roommate's dad's name is John Shire?
Really?
Yeah.
Spelled the same way?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not very much not, but
because you'd have to be kind of skeptical of him.
Yeah. No, Shire is different.
Okay. Yeah, man. And then Marcus Stroman went to Duke, and with the exception of Alex Verdugo, he's probably been the most frustrating. No, Anthony Rizzo. So Kin Knows Ball on Twitter asked, why are people going to war for 2024 Anthony Rizzo? And I think there are 2 things. One, people love the Italian guy. I think it's just true. And you're allowed to love the Italian guy. 2, the Yankees have not shown an ability to put a better option, a meaningfully better option, and obviously good option at first base this year. And maybe they're finding that in platoon situations with Oswaldo Cabrera. And I do think they had it with Ben Rice, and they just felt like they couldn't afford to let him ride out his struggles. And I think splitting time with DJ LeMahieu in the way that he did really hurt him. But I think people are just looking for something to latch onto there, and they see Anthony Rizzo digging balls out of the dirt, and they're like, okay. Now, there are some narratives that have been spread about Anthony Rizzo about like he's traded power for contact, and now he's succeeding when his OPS has started with like a 5 in that time. Anthony Rizzo has been terrible. He's been terrible at the plate, but there is something he does well. And I don't know if that's enough reason for people to go to war for him in the way that they do, especially given how terrible he's been the last 2 years. But I think it's just like, okay, this guy is doing something. So and I'm predisposed to liking him for whatever other reasons. So I'll defend him,
Story of the Yankees.
Exactly. All right, Whipple, we're about an hour in. It's time to wrap this thing up. The last podcast of the regular season. So, assuming the Yankees do not have to play a wild card series, they won't play after their series with the Pirates wraps up until like next weekend, the weekend of October 4th, 5th, 6th. So Whipple and I will be back next week to do a regular season wrap up and a postseason preview. They will be 2 distinct episodes. Whipple, for the last time this regular season, but not for the last time before the postseason starts, rank your confidence in this team.
I would give them a 9. I feel like with the division title intact, I mean, that's about where my confidence is going in. Just because, I mean, maybe a 9.5 would be fair. I'm sure before the playoffs, like maybe it'll swing up a little bit, but definitely feel like this is the most complete Yankees team. Sorry, complete meaning like everybody's healthy. Complete in other ways too, but like definitely everybody, knock on wood, is like healthy and producing at the right time. Even though Juan Soto decides to give us an injury scare, like he looks like he died every other week and then just like gets up and plays, which is like, it would be funny if it wasn't so scary.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like everything is clicking and health is the most important thing right now. So yeah, if we could get to ALDS game 1 healthy, I probably will go up. Right now, just 9 for a likely division title, and I feel very good about that.
Yeah, I'm going to go 9 as well. There are things that I'd like to see currently going better, but things are basically going as well as it gets. So yeah, 9 feels good to me. Do you have any parting shots before we wrap up this 125th, that's 5 cubed episode of Yankees Files?
I mean, part of the confidence comes from Gerrit Cole having one of his best outings as a Yankee on Friday. By game score, I think 4th best behind his shutouts. This is the best non-shutout that Gerrit Cole has thrown, I'm pretty sure, as a Yankee. And I mean, not that they weren't going to do well in the series, but I think going into Oakland, not always knowing what you're going to get on the West Coast, and only scoring 1 run in the first 9 innings to win that game, really, it was kind of Gerrit Cole shoving and showing us what he's capable of. And I'm excited to have him start in game 1. Didn't seem like it was always going to be certain this year, but man, it'd be tough to envision a deep October run without Gerrit Cole on the hill next Saturday. So,
and isn't it
just shout out to him?
Isn't it so fitting that, you know, the reactionary people started questioning him and his ability and his fitness to be the ace for this team after the debacle against Devers, and he comes back and shoves and allows 2 hits and 1 run in his next start in, I guess, technically not a complete game, but
yeah,
a 9-inning appearance.
I wish they had let him pitch the 10th.
It would have been crazy. It would have been awesome.
Yeah, but
I mean, he threw fewer than 100 pitches, right? 99 pitches.
I mean, I guess it's not a Maddox because he gave up a run, but it was very clearly like the Rizzo play that wasn't made. I mean, that could have been a no-hitter. Or
yeah. Oh,
I guess that would have been even worse if he threw 9 no-hit innings and went to the 10. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That would have been like top 10 weird games, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's up there anyway. So Gerrit Cole was awesome. All right, Whipple, that wraps things up for this 125th episode of the Yankees Files podcast. People can keep up with us at YankeesFiles.com. They can follow us on Twitter, where we are at Yankees Files. The podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. We hope you'll rate, review, subscribe, like, comment, give it 5 stars, whatever the things are on the podcast platform that you listen on. We have the added bonus of video on Spotify, and the whole video podcast, of course, goes up on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@crosstownsports. You can also catch the Battle of New York there, which I have it on good authority, is returning soon. You can catch everything from there on Twitter at CrosstownSN as well. I'm going to be at the game tomorrow, hopefully to see the Yankees clinch the division for the 2nd time in 3 years. I didn't see it last time. I'm just talking about they would clinch the division for the 2nd time in 3 years. And we will be back similar time, similar place next week to wrap up the regular season following these 6 games against Baltimore and Pittsburgh. So until then, let's go Yankees.